All right, let me show you something that is really amazing. It is simple to demonstrate. The workings of it are a little bit more complex, and I'm going to do a deep dive into it. So this is going to be a longer tutorial than I usually do. This is kind of a special edition, I guess. But let me demonstrate this trick for you, and then we'll get into that. All we need is a deck of cards. Some spectators would be helpful, and which I don't have, but we'll work around that. We'll use dice instead. What we're going to do is tell our spectator that we're going to take this deck of cards. In fact, let's take a look at it here. And it looks like it's pretty well shuffled, but we're going to get it mixed up. So we're going to do something pretty different. You've probably seen magicians do mind reading and things like that. This is not exactly that. This is more of a, it's kind of a mentalism trick, but it's different. It's kind of maybe a prediction trick, something like that. But the point is, we want to take a deck of cards here that's been randomized. And in fact, I'll have you cut the deck if you would. You can let them cut wherever they want to, and then cut again to their heart's content. But the idea is, let's keep the cards face down so we don't see what's going on the deck. And so they'll do that. And I'm going to have them, once they've decided they're finished cutting, we're going to put the deck inside this box. I'm going to have them keep an eye on this deck. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this deck right here and keep it in full view the whole time. In fact, you can keep your hand on it if you want to, but let's just say it's right there. Now, we mixed up a deck, we put it inside the box, so we can't even get to it, and nothing's happened yet. But what I'm going to ask my spectator to do is call out any number between 1 and 52. There's 52 cards in the deck, of course, but I want you to think about a number that's important to you, or however you want to ask them to call out a number. In this case, I'm going to throw some dice so that you can see for this video tutorial that it really can be a random number. So you can see these dice are real. Right there, I rolled a 5, 5, 10, that's a 13. If I roll them again, there's a 9, 11, oh, number 13, another 13. There's a 8, and 4 makes 12. So I'm getting different sets of dice is the point. Okay, so I did that for your sake to know this can be really a truly random number. Again, it can be 1 through 52 if you want. But we're going to do this. So that's the number we'll use, whatever we come up here. So 6 and 5 is 11. 11 plus 5 is what? 16. Okay, so we'll have our spectator will have called out a number. In this case, it will be 16. I say, okay, 16 is the number you called out. That must be an important number to you. But I'm going to take this piece of paper and a pen, and I'm going to do a little bit of I don't know what to call it, kind of thought crunching, or I'm going to try and figure out why you would come up with the number 16. There's something about it that it means something. So give me a little bit of thinking time here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw something on this pad, okay? But it's kind of complicated. So I'm not reading your mind because I already know you chose the number 16. I'm trying to figure out what that 16 represents and what it has to do with this demonstration, and in fact what it has to do with the shuffled deck of cards. But I'm going to draw something out here that I think will matter. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay, I think that's what I want. All right, so let me just take this piece of paper out of here like this and fold it like this. Put it right here. We don't need that anymore. Fold it like this. So I can't change my mind, and we can recap. So we shuffled up a deck, put it inside. You cut the deck before we put it in there, and then you called out any number you wanted to. In your case, it was 16. Of course, we rolled the dice so that we could get a truly random number, but they can call out anything they want. You called out a 16. Now, that represented something to me. Something came to my mind when you said 16 eventually, and that's why I wrote it out on a piece of paper. I'm going to show you for the first time what I scribbled on here. I don't know if it'll make sense to you, but I have a K and an S, 2 letters. K and S, that's what your 16 meant to me. So let's now, for the first time, take a look at the deck. And I have a funny feeling the K and the S are going to mean something when we count down 16 cards. Your number. Watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. That's the 16th card in this shuffled deck. None of these, but that one. And that one would be amazing. If that was something like, I don't know, a king of spades? Incredible. The 16th card was the KS, the king of spades. All right. Now, let me show you the workings of this trick. If you read the title of this, the thumbnail for this video, you would see that this is part of a series called Si Stebbins. I use the Si Stebbins deck to do this trick, but I also use something that I have not told you about, something that I came up with quite a while ago, and I'm gonna let you in on this little secret that I came up with for working with the Si Stebbins deck. I use a couple of things to do this trick. I use a stack deck, Si Stebbins. If you don't know what that means, you need to watch my Si Stebbins tutorial. I'll put a link in the description. I'm assuming you do know what Si Stebbins is if you clicked on this video or you stayed this long. Si Stebbins deck, of course, is a stacked deck of cards in a particular order. And in order to do this trick, in order for me to know, or eventually know, where every card is in the deck, I need to know the bottom card of my stack, and that's why I use this special box, which I've shown you before. Even though we put the deck inside this box and sealed it up, I did cheat a little. I did something called a peek, and that peek looks like this. When I set the deck down, I looked at this little corner here where I have a little window cut out with an X-Acto knife, and I could see what the bottom card is on the deck, because that's what I need to calculate, so to speak, what their card is going to eventually be. So we do that first. I get a peek. I now know the bottom card, and then I'm going to use something here that I call the Crib-u-lator. Ta-da! So what's that mean? That's just a silly word. It's a combination between a crib sheet and a calculator. And I cannot explain to you in this video how that works, and so I've made a video I'm going to cut to here in just a second that will go over how the Crib-u-lator works. But in a nutshell, what I've done is I've hidden this little sheet here in my tablet like this, and while I was contemplating what I'm doing and I'm talking about their number 16, I'm actually using this little crib sheet, calculator crib sheet, and I am figuring out what their card is, once of course I knew their number. And then once I know what it is, I wrote it on the sheet, tore this off. You know, I went like this, and I tore this. I kind of held this like this and tore it like that, you know, and did my thing. Now, I realize I'm skipping over a really important part of this trick, and that is, what is this thing and how does it work? Well, that's what I'm ready to tell you right now. But I made a separate video, which you're going to watch right now. And then when we come back, I'll explain a little bit more. Okay, what you're looking at here is something I call the Crib-u-lator, which is kind of a combination between a crib sheet and a calculator. And it's laid out in a very unique way to help you find any card in a Si Stebbins stack based on knowing the bottom card of the deck. So let's look at the chart a little bit here. You'll notice the bottom box right here is empty, the 52nd card. That represents the card on the bottom of the deck. So in order to use the Crib-u-lator, you need to know the bottom card. From there, as long as you know the Si Stebbins principle, the Si Stebbins stack order, you can find any card pretty quickly. Maybe not instantly, but with just a couple of calculations that are pretty quick, you'll be able to find any card in the deck based on that information. Before I show you how this works, it's really important that you understand you have to know the Si Stebbins order. I always use the chased order, CHSD, which is clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds. That's the most common. So in this tutorial, that's what I'll be using. If you do something different, you'll have to adjust. And you can use the same cheat sheet to do this, but I'm going to be using the common chased order. All right, having said that, let's examine what we have here. Obviously, we have 52 boxes, a box for every card in the deck, in 4 columns, that's on purpose, and in 13 rows, also by design. And again, like I said, the bottom card blank, we'll know what that is. When I'm using the Crib-u-lator and I'm a pen and I'm trying to calculate a particular card in the deck, the first thing I do is I write down the name of the card in that bottom box. So for example, if it was the Jack of Diamonds, I'd write JD in that box. And from there, I can calculate and count any number in the deck and find out what that card is. But it's much easier than it looks. So you'll notice that some of these numbers are bolded. The 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, etc., all the way up to 48. The reason for that is because of the Si Stebbins principle. The Si Stebbins all these cards are 3 apart. And so every 4th card is in a particular pattern. In fact, every 4th card is going to be not only the same suit, but it's going to be in a sequential order. In other words, if the Jack of Diamonds is in the bottom of the deck, the 48th, 44th, 40th, 36th, 32nd, all the way up to the 4th card will all be diamonds. Not only will they be diamonds, but they will be in order. In fact, they will be in this order. You'll notice that they count up backwards. So if the Jack of Diamonds is on the bottom of the deck, I know that the 48th card is the Queen of Diamonds, 44th is the King of Diamonds, and so on. Ace of Diamonds, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of diamonds, all on the bolded boxes. So those bolded boxes are really important because those are reference points of how we can get around the deck once we know our bottom card. So I can very quickly get to a number and know its card as long as it's in that bolded box. That's great. However, not everybody's going to select a number that's a multiple of 4 like that, but these are starting points to get to boxes around them or cards around them. So this is the first principle. The first principle is that the bolded numbers are all the same suit and they're in this order, counting backwards, so to speak, if you will. Jack, Queen, King, Ace, 2, 3, etc., all the way up to box number 4. The second principle is the bottom row, you will notice, is all italicized. And the reason for that is because I want to draw attention to the fact that when you know the bottom card, you'll also know this bottom row because all of these cards will be the same value. So while we have all the bolded boxes, the same suit, the rows are in the same value, also in this order: clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. So when the bottom card is the Jack of Diamonds, that means 13 is Jack of Clubs, more reference points that help us get around the deck quickly. Now, just let me pause here for a second because this is going to look way more complicated than it is, because as we fill in this grid, you're going to go, oh my goodness, how am I going to, I'm not going to count the whole deck. You won't have to count the whole deck. Depending on the number you're looking for, if somebody calls the number 18, for example, you're not going to fill in this whole grid. You're just going to go to the number 18, bouncing off some of these reference points. So bear with me if this starts to look really complicated. Don't worry about it. In the very end, it'll make way more sense. And as we move along, you'll see there's much easier shortcuts. So since the rows are all the same value, and the columns are rather not the columns, but the bolded numbers are all the same suit, that helps us get around to a lot of cards in the deck. So in other words, the top row are going to be all aces because of the way it works, and in chased order. In this particular case, since the diamond's on the end, we're going to have ace of clubs, ace of hearts, ace of spades, ace of diamonds, and on down the list, right? So if we keep going, that means if you look at the row with the kings, that all those cards will be kings. King of clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds all the way across. And that's true for the entire chart. So the second row would be all 4s, then 7s, 10s, etc. Okay, now I want you to notice that while we have all the bolded boxes with the same suit, there's another principle here that's important to note. And that is, again, with Si Stebbins, cards are 3 apart. And you'll notice, and this will matter in a minute, so stay with me, because again, this seems complicated, but it's really pretty easy. You'll notice there's another pattern here that can be helpful in jumping around the deck. So for example, if you look at box number 48, you'll notice it's a queen, right? And in this case, we're working with diamonds because our bottom card's a Jack of Diamonds. So all the bolded boxes will be diamonds. But just for now, look at the queen in 48. You'll notice that the box to the left of it and down one that goes down a diagonal is a 2. If you're familiar with Si Stebbins, you know that makes sense because a 2 always follows a queen because they're 3 apart, as does a 5 following a 2. After a 5 is an 8. So here we have another pattern that's very quick for us to use. If you went to the 44th box, a King of Diamonds, you'll notice that working backwards diagonally, you'll see that we have, it goes King, 3, 6, 9. by threes, just like the Si Stebbins sequential order should work. And again, look at the ace of diamonds. Again, these continue on. Ace, 4, 7, 10. So that pattern is just another way to get around. So once you land on a box, that's a bolded box, it's very easy to go just about any direction and know the cards around it just by using that principle of diagonals. So now let's look at some real life examples. We'll get away from the Jack of Diamonds and let's kind of run through what would happen in the real world. So let's say we've shuffled the deck, we put it in our box, we know the bottom card now because we did the peek. We know the bottom card is a 9 of clubs. And somebody calls out a number and we have to find what that card is very quickly. So in this example, let's say they call out the number 33. So we need to know what card is in box number 33. What's the quickest way to do that? Well, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways. You can decide which way you want to go using these principles of 4 and bolded boxes and all that kind of stuff we just talked about. Let me just also preference this by saying if you know the Si Stebbins stacks backwards and forwards, it really helps. In other words, it's good to know cards that come after and cards that come before a particular card if you can. But there's ways around that. Here's what I mean. So somebody says the number 33, and we're working with the 9 of clubs. We have a couple of options. One thing we can do is we can just count up. We could go 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace of clubs, and then from there, because you can do that pretty quickly, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, we know those are all clubs. We know the one right after 32 or 33 is going to be 4 of hearts. So very quickly, we could have found the 4 of hearts by just going right there. So you can see that's a pretty quick calculation just to get to their chosen number. But there's an even quicker way to do it if we use this principle. Instead of going all the way up from 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, and then coming back down one, we could have taken this shortcut. We could have gone 9, 10, Jack, and then remember our principle of diagonals. Remember what comes after a Jack in numerical order is an ace because everything's 3 apart. So we could have just gone that direction. We could have gone 9, 10, Jack. Oh, go down to the next one. That's ace. And then what's after the ace of clubs? Of course, the 4 of hearts. So if that's too hard for you, until you get used to it, you can use this. You can use the longer way. There's nothing wrong with going 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, and then figuring it out. That's pretty fast. But as you get better at this, it's nice to be able to go 9, 10, Jack, Ace. There we go. 4 of hearts. Done. So I just used a couple of different ways to get around it. Either way, it's a phenomenal revelation because they've called out any number they want. And as far as they know, you have no idea what the cards are, where the cards are in the deck. So even if you took a few seconds to do this, it's still quite amazing. Let's look at another example. Let's say we're working with a deck that has a Queen of Hearts on the bottom. Somebody calls out the number 11. What's the fastest way to get to that box is what I want to ask myself. Remember, I have a couple of different ways to get there. So I could go backwards. I know that the bottom row are all queens, and I have to remember my clubs, hearts, spades, diamond order. But I really don't have to fill in the whole row. I'm looking to get to the number 11, remember. If I'm looking at a Queen of Hearts on the bottom, I can run right to box number 13 because the queen in that box is going to be clubs, hearts, spades, right? So that's going to be a Queen of Spades, and then just go up from there. So let's do that. So in other words, I didn't have to fill in these. I just had to go from the Queen of Hearts to the Queen of Spades because we're in chased order, right? This would be clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds, but I don't need to know that. I'm just going to go hearts, Queen, spades, and I got to my Queen of Spades, 13. And remember, we're looking for number 11, so I have to kind of back up. Well, what comes before the Queen of Spades? A 9 of Hearts. What comes before a 9 of Hearts? 6 of Clubs. Okay? So now, saying it out loud, it takes a long time, but just doing this in your head, it could go a little bit faster. And so you just have to be able to, in this case, I'd want to be able to count backwards a couple of slots on the Si Stebbins stack. Now, one shortcut is when I get to the Queen of Spades, at least I know that the box above it is going to be a heart. Even if I can't quickly count that it's a 9, I know it's going to be a heart. Why do I know that? Because it's bold. All the bolded boxes in this particular case are hearts because we're working with Queen of Hearts. So everything in the bold boxes is going to be a heart. So I know that's at least a heart. So in my mind, I could go, let's see, Queen of Hearts, Queen of Spades. I know I've got a heart there. Which one is it? I just back up to 9. Okay, so 9 hearts. And now I'm right up. One more calculation and I'm at the card. So again, it takes a couple of seconds. But let's do it again. Maybe a slightly different way. Maybe this is easier. Instead of counting backwards. What if you went like this? You have the Queen of Hearts. Somebody says 11. Well, instead of going this way, you could go all the way back around to the 4. Remember, this goes like this. King, ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack. Well, we don't need to count all the way back. We just know the one before the queen is the jack. So I could have gone from Queen of Hearts just right back around to the back to the 4, where the Jack of Hearts would be. From there, I can go down to the 10 of Hearts. Now, I know that these are all hearts because they're bold. I know this is a heart because it's bold. But if I can land on the 10 of Hearts, I don't have very far to go to get down to box number 11. All I have to do is go from 10. I could go to a king and a 3. I don't need to know the suits yet. I'm looking for number 11 and then land on here. I'll know it's a 6. I'll know it's a 6. But how do I know it's a club? Well, I can either go hearts, spades, diamonds, clubs, or I can know it's a club because it's surrounded by bold boxes. The 12 is a heart. The 24 is a heart. The 8 is a heart. I know this is a king, 3, 6, and if this is a heart and this is a heart, that's got to be a club. Now, saying it like that takes a lot longer than you calculating it in your head. If it were me in the real life situation and I was going to go this direction, I'd go like this. I've got a Queen of Hearts. Now I know I got a Jack, 10 of Hearts. From there, that only took, 2 seconds? From there, even if I take a little bit of time and go, let's see, King, 3, 6. I know I'm looking at a 6. And then I take another couple seconds to go hearts, spades, diamonds, clubs. Got it. Okay. So that could have taken me maybe 5, 6, 7 seconds to know the card in the 11th position in that deck. Absolutely amazing. So don't get thrown off by this taking too much calculating time, because it's still pretty quick considering the effect that you're pulling off. Let's look at another example until we get good at this. Now we've got a deck with the 2 of spades on the bottom. And let's say the spectator calls out number 42. This brings up an interesting point about this. We've got a couple of ways to go here. We can go, like we said before, we can go from 2 of spades to 3 of spades and 4 of spades and 5 of spades and then go from there. Because we're looking to land on box number 42. We want to know what that card is. But here's something that's interesting about this principle. You'll notice that when I showed you all the rows are the same value. So this row is all 2s, right? Well, this row is going to be all 3s, 4s, and 5s. So the 40 box is going to be the 5 of spades. But a faster way to know that is to know that the bottom row and the top row are 3 apart, just like these bold diagonals are 3 apart. If this is a 5 of spades, because this is a 2 of spades, you know that this is going to be 3 apart from here, right? This is going to be the 8 of spades, and so on. Jack of spades. Okay, but we don't need to know all that. In this case, we're just looking to get to number 42. I'm simply pointing out that these things are all spread out mathematically in a perfect order. So instead of going 2, 3, 4, 5, I can save 1 second and go from 2 of spades right up to 5 of spades right here at the 40. Okay? From there, I can easily get down to my box number 42. That would look like this. So I could have gone 2, 3, 4, 5, and then gone to 8 of diamonds, Jack of clubs, I got my card, or I could have skipped these and gone right up to the 5 of spades. That looks like this. I would have gone 2 of spades, 5, 8, Jack of clubs, spades, diamonds, clubs. Pretty simple. Let's try another example. Let's say we've got a 10 of hearts on the bottom of the deck, and somebody simply calls out the number 5. What could we do? Again, this is pretty easy, especially when they're near when the numbers they call out are near one of our bold boxes. So again, instead of going all the way back, instead of going to Jack, Queen, King, Ace, 2, 3, I can just come back around to here. I know this is going to be a 9 of hearts. I know the 4 is going to be a 9 of hearts. So if we're looking for number 5, I just got to figure out the one after that. So that would look like this. In my mind, I went from 10 of hearts to 9 of hearts. From there, I can get to a queen of spades. So the good news is a good portion of the deck are bolded numbers. If somebody calls out a bolded number, boy, you're golden. That's really easy to find. But even if they call out one that's right next to a bolded number, it's still pretty quick to find. And that's an example of that. And let's do one more. Let's say we have a card on the bottom of the deck that's a 3 of clubs. Remember, we're using the principle of 3. If the bottom row is 3s, the top row's 6s. So that's really easy. I went from 3 of clubs to the 6 of clubs. From there, I can go clubs, hearts, spades, and I know that the 14th box is the 6 of spades. Okay, so that's basically the concept of Crib-u-lator. And again, this is one of those things that looks way more complicated than it is. However, it does take 2 things. It takes a little bit of practice, kind of fun to play with. So practice it by picking a random card on the deck and pick a random number and see how long it takes you to calculate it. The other thing is you need to really know the Si Stebbins order. And it really helps be able to count back a card or forward a card or 2 pretty quickly. But at the most, you're not going to really count more than 2 cards forward. If somebody picks a bold number, you're going to be able to find it really easily. But if somebody picks, say instead of the 4, somebody picks the 7, you're going to just need to go to the 8 and back up 1. Or if somebody picks the 5, you're going to go to the 4 and go forward 1. So every once in a while, there'll be one that's 2 off. So if somebody picks this number 6, you're going to go to the 4th card and go down 2. Or if it's easier for you, go to the 8th one and go back 2, whichever is easier. It's usually easier to go forward. But having said all that, this is the layout for the Crib-u-lator. I hope you put it to good use. It's a lot of fun. Practice it, get really good at it, and it will be an amazing revelation from a deck of cards. Whew, okay, I know there was a lot going on in that video, but I want you to see the details of how this little sheet works. And congratulations for staying this long in the video. You win a free Crib-u-lator. Actually, everybody does. There's a link below this description, or below this video in the description, where you can download the PDF and print those off all you want to. Basically, a couple of tips. When I'm doing this, I just kind of keep this stuck up in the tablet like that. And then when I'm turned around and I'm dialoguing with them and doing the little calculation at the same time. And remember, it's okay to take a few seconds to do it, because what you're about to do is really amazing, even if it takes you 5 or 10 seconds to do the calculation. I'm just kind of doing this. I keep it in the middle of the page here so I can be drawing, sketching out the letters of the card. And then when it's time to tear it off, I just kind of do one of these, put the sheet behind it, maybe fold it like this, And of course I'm doing it this way so you don't see this. Just kind of fold it, tear it off, then I can get rid of this, and we're just left with our sort of prediction thing. Now, so that's pretty easy to do. The other thing is, this is really, I kind of figured this out while I was doing this tutorial. I've always thought this is a great trick to do, just have somebody call out a number, which you can do. But if that's too difficult, if you find the calculation too cumbersome, what you can do is, if you use dice, no one will notice this, because they don't really know what you're going to do anyway. If you use dice, in this case I used 4 dice, you really only are going to end up with the numbers 4 through 24. People don't think of that, though, when you're going through this, and realize it's not a 1 in 52 chance, it's a 4 through 24 chance. And by reducing the size of that, window, that number window, you only need to really use a small section of your Crib-u-lator. You're going to end up on cards 4 through 24. So that's even easier to calculate. If you want to add a 5th dice just to spread it out a little bit more, you can do that. But the point is, you don't have to do the whole 52 if you don't want to. People won't notice, because throwing dice is certainly a reasonable way to come up with a random number, and can make it slightly easier for you to do that calculation. Okay, now, having said all that, Crib-u-lator's cool. Download the PDF, print them off if you want to do that. It's still a little bit difficult because you have to do some math, and I think in that previous video I kind of show some pretty good shortcuts. It does take some practice. You got to really know your Si Stebbins stack. It's always good to know the card before and after, like I said. But anyway, that's great. Now, something else I want to show you. If you have my Card Magic training kit, you already know about what I'm about to show you. It's called the SciTech Deck web app. And basically, about I think 3 or 4 years ago, I came up with this web app idea and programmed this thing to do this for me on my phone, right? So I have an app, like I said, called the SciTech Deck web app. And instead of using a tablet and instead of using this little crib sheet thing, I have an app that does it in 2 taps. And I'll show you what I mean. So if we were going to use this deck, this is a Si Stebbins stack. I won't go through all the rigmarole and all that. You get the idea. Once we put it in here and I go like this and I get my peak, remember I'm peaking the bottom card. In this case, it's a Queen of Spades. All I have to do is tell my app in 1 tap. I can tell it Queen of Spades while I'm talking, and I'm going to tell them I have a picture on my phone. And while I was just doing that right now, I actually just told it the Queen of Spades. I told the app Queen of Spades with the touch of my thumb. And the next thing I need to tell it is whatever number they've called out. And by then I would have known, let's say they call out 17, and I'm going to go, I have a picture on my phone of a card. You said 17, right? Okay, so let's take a look at the picture I have. And I have here a picture of a Jack of Diamonds. Interesting. You said 17. I had a Jack of Diamonds. Let's go through and see what happened. Well, we'll find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, of course, will be our Jack of Diamonds because the app knew the bottom card and did all that calculating for us. So that is I showed you that to show you how I kind of came up with that. I always like the idea of being able to take a Si Stebbins deck and know where every card is in the deck kind of instantly. There are other ways, but the math is just horrendous. There's a famous way, but you have to know, I think, the bottom 4 cards, and then you got to do some amazing gymnastics with the math to figure out the suit and the value and all the kind of stuff. So I went from there to going, is there a way to do it with just knowing the bottom card? Well, yeah, if you know the bottom card, you can use this, and there's patterns. If all you have to do is do a couple of jumps, maybe 3-4 times across this chart from the bottom card, you could get to it as I showed you in the video. But then I thought, wait a minute, what am I doing? We have technology. So if it doesn't bother you to use a phone to do a magic trick, some guys don't like that, some people don't like that. But for me, 2 taps. First tap, I tell it bottom card. Second tap, I tell it the number, and I can do it almost without looking. I can do it while I'm talking, do it with my thumb, and it will bring up that whatever that card is. So if the bottom card, so here's what it looks like. So let's say the bottom card was a Jack of Clubs. Okay, I just did a tap. I told it Jack of Clubs. Let's say they said the number 20. I would turn it around. I said Jack of Clubs and 20 just with a tap on my thumb. That will be the 20th card in the deck if the Jack of Clubs is on the bottom. That's how the SciTech Deck web app, boy, that's a long word. That's how that web app works. So if you have my Card Magic training kit, you already have this app. So this isn't new news to you, but if you don't, you can get the app. The app is not expensive. I sell it on my website, like 10 bucks. And it's an instant download. It comes with videos, shows you how to use it, of course. But so it's a little bit of a commercial. But I just wanted you to know kind of the evolution of that. So you could do it manually, like I said, with the Crib-u-lator, or you can use a little technology, kind of show a picture on your phone. Either way, I think it's absolutely astounding when somebody calls out a number. The deck is sealed, the deck is sealed in its box the whole time, calls out a number, and you can almost instantly, or at least within a few seconds, within a reasonable amount of time, tell them the exact card that's in that position. All right? Wow, that's a lot of information. That's a long video. I hope that one was worth it. So I hope you enjoy the whole concept of using a Si Stebbins deck with either technology or a manual little crib sheet kind of a thing. I hope you enjoy it and have a lot of fun with that.